The episode began as manager Kim's confiscated phone began to ring. He originally paid no attention to it, but upon hearing the officer mention his daughter's name as the caller, the look in his eyes immediately shifted. Disregarding the fact that this was a police station, he lunged forward, choking the officer to snatch his phone back. Manager Kim answered the call with a trembling voice, hardly daring to believe whether there was still a glimmer of hope that Minji was alive somewhere. 5 months ago, in 1997 in North Korea, a delegation led by Major Ri visited an orphanage with the purpose of selecting the strongest child to train into an elite agent. When Major Ri asked the children if anyone wanted to return with him to serve the military, a young boy named Kim immediately raised his hand and asked if he would get enough to eat. Upon receiving a definitive yes, he proactively stepped onto the podium and challenged the entire class. A fierce brawl ensued among the children. And in the end, the only one left standing was a young boy named Dong Gang. Just as Major Ri ordered Dong Gang to be taken to the training camp, his ankle was unexpectedly grabbed tightly by another child. The sheer resilience of this boy influenced the decision of Major Ri, who ordered both children to be brought back because the Republic needed such a persistent spirit. When asked for his name, the boy could only utter the word Kim before losing consciousness. During the revolutionary spirit lessons, any child showing signs of discouragement would instantly receive a bullet from Major Ri. This training camp gathered all the most elite children carefully chosen by the Major. They would be trained to become the Special Operations Force of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Their objective was to infiltrate South Korea as moles, to secretly eliminate high-ranking officials there. Therefore, they not only required physical training, but also had to endure brutal torture to test their indomitable spirit, demanding that they keep their mouths absolutely shut and never disclose harmful information to their homeland. During these sessions that felt like hell on earth, it becomes clear that the codename 66 did not originally belong to Kim, but was instead the code number for Dong Gang. Kim was designated as number 73. While other militaries trained to strengthen the physical condition of recruits, these North Korean children were trained to learn how to take human lives. The one who excelled in all training exercises and pleased Major Ri the most was Agent 66 Dong Gang. Kim felt deeply bitter and resentful for only being ranked second. That evening when Dong Gang brought him food, Kim immediately threw it away. Dong Gang believed that since they both came from the same orphanage, they should look out for each other, but Kim did not see it that way. His ego was higher than the sky. He absolutely refused to allow anyone to be better than him and insisted on holding the number 1 spot. Consequently, he lunged into a fistfight with Dong Gang. During subsequent training sessions, Kim practiced frantically even more, training day and night without regard for rest. That night when Kim was sleeping, someone attempted to feed him a bullet but failed. After giving the attacker a beating, Kim walked outside. He witnessed the bodies of other children being carried out and thrown into a fire. This was the fate of the useless ones who were eliminated during the training process. Time flew by and both Kim and Dong Gang grew into adulthood, firmly maintaining their positions as number 1 and number 2 in the operations team. After all these years, sensing that the timing was perfect, Major Ri immediately ordered them to South Korea, with the mission this time being the assassination of a South Korean Ministry of Foreign Affairs official. The operations team concealed themselves in the darkness, moving swiftly through the forest path. The entire team followed the command of Dong Gang. They easily infiltrated the private residence of the target. The moment the prey was spotted, Kim opened fire. The mission seemed complete at this point. Dong Gang cautiously stepped forward to inspect the target. When he discovered that what lay before him was merely a dummy, the bomb rigged onto it had already reached zero and a deafening explosion claimed the life of Agent 66. 2 men went in but only one survived, causing Kim to be immediately suspected as a traitor. The day he left the orphanage, 66 had promised his younger brother that he would return soon to pick him up. Now, that younger brother carried the codename 66 of his older brother, pointing a gun at the back of the neck of the man who caused his brother's demise. Manager Kim tilted his head as fast as lightning to dodge the bullet. He was about to grab the wrist of 66 when Han-soo simultaneously kicked the attacker far away. This action accidentally reunited the assailant with his gun. The 2 men immediately ran to find cover. The shooter continuously laid down heavy fire while slowly advancing toward them. Just as the duo fell into a precarious, life-threatening situation, the attacker 66 was suddenly shot by a third party. The people who appeared were none other than Mr. Lee and Sang-a. It turned out Mr. Lee had recognized him earlier at the school parking lot. Now confronted by two gun barrels pointing at him, the attacker obediently dropped his weapon onto the floor. Manager Kim only now learned that his female corporate colleague and the laundry shop uncle near his house were actually two South Korean agents tasked with monitoring his every move. Because he had proactively exposed his identity, he breached his contract with the South Korean government. He was no longer permitted to live as an ordinary South Korean citizen. Manager Kim stated that his daughter had been kidnapped, promising that once he found her, he would surrender himself. Hearing this, Mr. Lee softened his heart and let Manager Kim go. While everyone focused their attention on Manager Kim, the assassin 66 suddenly knocked Sang-a down, grabbed her gun, and heavily wounded Mr. Lee. However, before he could run more than a few steps, Sang-a lunged forward to attack him fiercely. Fortunately for 66, he managed to grab a gun on the floor, forcing Sang-a to temporarily dive for cover, which created an opportunity for him to chase after Manager Kim and his companion. Inside, before Sang-a could even grieve the passing of her colleague, her partner opened his eyes and revived. Fortunately, Mr. Lee wore a bulletproof vest, so the recent shot could not claim his life. By this time, the car driven by Han Soo was speeding directly toward Hasan Station, their goal being to find the homeless man. Because he was distracted looking at the wounds of Manager Kim in the back seat, Han Soo almost crashed into Park Jin-chul, who had just arrived. Fortunately, he slammed on the brakes just in time at the final second. Park Jin-chul began talking at a rapid-fire pace the moment he got into the car, making Han Soo feel extremely annoyed by the noise. At the station, the homeless man sat in a corner, and out of sheer boredom with nothing to do, he went to bully a student. He never expected that the student's protectors were two large men forcing the terrified homeless man to fake a faint. When he opened his eyes again, the trio, including Manager Kim, stood before him. Manager Kim held out the phone of his daughter, asking where he had obtained it. Initially, the man deflected and denied everything. However, when Park Jin-chul threatened to drag him into a nearby alley to beat him up, the man quickly confessed. That evening, he saw a fat man step out of a car and throw a bag of food into the trash can. Being starving, he rummaged through the trash for food and accidentally found the phone. A group of local youths saw it was a valuable item and successfully used a bottle of alcohol to exchange for the phone in his hand. The homeless man could only recall that it was a white BMW, and the fat man wore his hair in a bun. Other than that, he could remember nothing else. Han Soo returned to the vehicle and quickly used a specialized computer to hack into the camera system of that street. After staring intently at the screen for a while, they finally spotted the white BMW parking and the fat man with the bun stepping out to discard the items. With a single click of the mouse, Han Soo uncovered the entire background and lineage of the fat man. His last name was Kim, and he possessed 8 prior criminal convictions. Hearing this, Manager Kim became increasingly anxious for the safety of his daughter. During this time, the fat gangster was with his boss, a thug named Lee. Through their conversation, it is revealed that they had hidden Minji in a place where no one could ever find her. Lee intended to use the demise of the young girl to threaten the daughter of Chairman Chu because he harbored a deep, vengeful hatred against Chairman Chu. Years ago, there was a residential area where inhabitants refused to sign the site clearance contract, and Lee acted on behalf of Chu to use violence to suppress the citizens. However, Chu felt that was still insufficient. He then ordered his men to push Lee down from a high altitude. After that, he used the accident of Lee to bribe the press into writing news reports, stating that the apartment building was no longer safe for residents to inhabit. Lee was resilient and fortunately did not perish. He turned his bitterness toward life, returning to stab the boss who had pushed him off the building. Following that, Lee naturally took over the leadership position and became the new big boss. Once he possessed power in his hands, he brought his subordinates to find Chairman Chu to settle the score, but he forgot one detail. Before becoming the chairman of the construction corporation, this man named Chu had already been a seasoned gangster operating in the criminal underworld long before him. Lee was no match for Chu. He was slapped repeatedly by Chu until his vision went blurry. Even when Lee drew a knife, Chu still easily disarmed him and gifted him an unforgettable scar right on his face. Chu did not stop there, ordering his secretary to continuously stuff hot potatoes into Lee's mouth. Unable to endure this brutal torture any longer, Lee crawled on his knees to Chu's feet. He wretchedly begged Chu for mercy, promising to act as Chu's loyal dog for the rest of his life. That specific vow was what kept Lee alive until now, and he would never forget the humiliation of that year. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, he and his subordinates brought Minji's body to the harbor to dispose of the evidence. By this time, Hansu's tracking device had only reached 80% completion, leaving them unable to pinpoint the exact location of the BMW. At the harbor, an elderly security guard accidentally discovered Lee and his henchmen. Consequently, he was brutally sent to the afterlife by the fat gangster. Having dealt with the security guard, they proceeded to drag Minji's body into the cold storage room. On the other side, just as the tracking scan reached 95%, Hansu's vehicle was suddenly hit by a bomb, causing it to fly 3 meters into the air and roll several times before coming to a halt. Manager Kim suffered a severe impact, but his eyes dared not stray from the radar screen. By the time the scanner displayed 100%, his daughter was still moving inside the cold storage room on the other side. As the young girl managed to break free from the sack, the tracking scanner informed Manager Kim that the location of the BMW was at Myeongbo port. The person who detonated the bomb to blow up the vehicle was Chief Kong, who wanted Manager Kim to follow him submissively. However, the first person to scramble out was Hansu. He began stretching his muscles and jokingly drew Kang's attention. The moment Kong pulled the trigger, Hansu not only dodged beautifully, but also leaped into midair and performed a spectacular spin, defying all laws of physics. Although Kong watched in utter bewilderment, he still managed to evade Hansu's thunderous kick. Even so, Hansu smiled brightly and declared that he had won. By the time Kong understood the situation, Manager Kim had already boarded Kang's car and stepped on the gas to drive away. Furious, Kong stayed behind to vent his anger on Hansu. Kong scored the first point by attacking Hansu's calf. Hansu retaliated with a direct headbutt to Kang's face. He followed up with a powerful head strike that sent Kong flying straight into the river. Since a convoy of South Korean agents had arrived, Hansu also jumped into the river to escape. Back at the harbor, Minji began running around the cold storage room crying out for help. Outside, the thug Lee proactively called Secretary Nam. He laid his cards on the table, explicitly stating his desire to confront Chairman Chu. He possessed evidence of Chairman Chu's beloved daughter committing a homicide. He then played a segment of the voice recording for Secretary Nam to hear first. Nam immediately reported this matter to Chairman Chu. Afterward, he ordered his secretary to fabricate evidence to shift all the blame for the murder onto the thug Lee. By this time, Manager Kim had sped to the harbor, spotting a white BMW parked nearby, confirming he was in the right place. Relying on his instincts as an agent, he bypassed all the shipping containers and headed straight for the room he suspected most. However, this was not the cold storage room holding Minji. Manager Kim recognized the fat gangster. He held his daughter's phone up in front of them, giving them a chance to live if they confessed honestly. But it seems they rejected this opportunity. Concurrently, the door to the cold storage room swung open and Minji cautiously hid to one side to observe. The person stepping inside was the thug Lee. The young girl immediately ran to find a hiding spot. Lee walked directly toward Minji as if guided by a ghost. Just as he was one step away from spotting her, the phone in his coat pocket vibrated, the caller being Chairman Chu. Delighted, he walked outside to answer the call. Lee got straight to the point, proposing a face-to-face exchange. He would deliver Minji's body to Chairman Chu in exchange for 2 billion won in cash at a designated location, while also demanding the teeth of Secretary Nam. Lee still held a grudge over the incident years ago when Nam knocked out his entire set of teeth. Chu agreed to the deal. Afterward, he brought along an entire squad of bodyguards determined to crush Lee completely on this trip. While Lee was joyfully imagining a wealthy future and fulfilled revenge, the door behind him suddenly creaked. He turned his head to look, and his gaze met directly with the eyes of Minji. Nearby at that very moment, Manager Kim had already finished off Lee's talkative henchman.